computing outside. Classic Empire head-to-head down to the line. Cloud computing wins the Preakness.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Spa Babies, presented by Spendthrift. I'm Dan Illman, along with Nicole Russo, and let's kick off the Friday, July 23rd card at Saratoga with our Spa Baby race. We also kick off the early pick 5. Spendthrift Stallions, represented by the 2, King of Sting by Jimmy Creed, and the 9, Big Scully by Cross Traffic. Only one experienced horse in this race, the 8, Buckingham Prince. And it's worth noting, Nicole, this is a restricted maiden race. The restriction for horses that sold or were RNAs for $45,000 or less in their most recent auction.
Yeah, this is a condition that they introduced a couple of years ago at Saratoga, and they've really turned into some interesting handicapping races, kind of a nice, even playing field. And there are some angles to play if you sort of look at the auction prices for those horses, maybe looking for horses who sold toward the upward end of that range.
The number 1 is Whiskey Gent, owned by Calumet Farm, and an $18,000 weanling purchase by Mr. Speaker, who wins 8% with his 2-year-old first-time starters. Solid string of works for Jack Sisterson, Nicole, but the New York bred must overcome the inside post.
Yeah, and I do think this horse will do better with some experience, could get a good learning experience here from that inside post based on sort of how the Mr. Speakers have run. He was a horse who was bred to run on dirt, who did his best work on turf. He certainly has good dirt horses like the likes of Speech and others who show some speed, but they have tended to come around a bit better after, a couple of races under their belts.
The number 2 is King of Sting by Spendthrift Stallion Jimmy Creed. This one was an $18,000 yearling, a $35,000 buyback earlier this year after breezing a quarter mile in 22 and change. As you see on the screen, Jimmy Creed does very, very well with his 2-year-old first-time starters, and the dam's a half-sister to Macho, who won the West Virginia Derby. Good pedigree.
Yeah, and Jimmy Creed, who stands at Spendthrift, such an underrated sire. He sires rock solid, very quick racehorses on both dirt and turf. A good 2-year-old sire, as you see there with his 17% first-time starter statistic. I think this one for Joe Sharp could connect at a price, and I like that he gets Jose Ortiz for his debut.
Number 3 is Unbridled Bomber. This is a son of Upstart who's doing very well with his juvenile debut runners, clicking at 17%, a $35,000 2-year-old purchase back in April after breezing a furlong in 10-3. Some class deep in this family.
Definitely, and some sprint class deep in the family, as you see those grade 1 winners there in the pedigree. I like that, some speed in there to kind of balance out the dam, who was a multiple winning router, Upstart a winning router himself, and I like his nice leggy physicals better with a bit more distance than this, but there is the juvenile ability here.
Good formulator fact for trainer Jimmy Ryerson, who recently won some nice races with Miss Marissa, I believe the Delaware Handicap. 2-year-old debut runners in restricted or state-bred maiden special weight, sprinting on the dirt, 30% winners, big ROI, $8.87. The number 4 is Sailor Speed, who attracts Javier Castellano for trainer Wayne Potts. This is a son of Preakness winner Oxbow. And Nicole, the Oxbows tend to get better with a little maturity, a little bit more distance. That being said, there's a nice combination of stamina over speed in the pedigree, lots of sprint influences underneath.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. Plenty of speed in that female family, some class in there with Mr. Windjammer and others. But I do like the Oxbows a bit with some experience as they get their feet wet and kind of learn the game a little. They tend to come on a bit more toward their 3-year-old year.
Trainer Rudy Rodriguez has our next 2 entrants, the 5, Not Yet Charlie, the 6, Good Skate. We'll talk about Not Yet Charlie. Now, this horse just squeaks into the condition. Sold for $45,000 in May after breezing the quarter mile in 22 flat. This one's by Fed Biz, solid juvenile debut stallion, some speed in the pedigree, and Joel Rosario takes them out.
Definitely. You mentioned 2 in here for Rudy Rodriguez. This one gets Rosario. The other one gets Irad Ortiz. Certainly nothing to knock on either set of connections there. This one, as you mentioned, sold decently in May after breezing a quarter mile, usually a mature horse to work a quarter mile at a 2-year-old sale, and then showed right up on the work tab in Saratoga later that month after his purchase for his new connections. I would be really interested to see what our colleague Mike Welsh and his team have to say in the Clocker reports on this horse, because it certainly looked like he kept ticking right along and, has been steadily getting ready to debut.
A stablemate, Good Skate, the number 6, has a lot of speed in his pedigree. The dam, a multiple stakes winning dirt sprinter. She, a half to a multiple stakes place dirt sprinter. Tell us a little bit about this young stallion. American Freedom's gotten off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, American Freedom came right out firing early in the year with those 4.5 furlong baby races to start this 2-year-old season. So certainly he can sire a precocious, fast horse for these one-turn races. And American Freedom is very interesting, a multiple graded winner in his own right. And he's expected to be one of the last significant sons of Sire of Sires Pulpit to stud. There's a couple in this freshman class for Pulpit, American Freedom and Lord Nelson.
Like Not Yet Charlie, both the 7 and the 8 just get into this race as $45,000 purchases. We'll begin with the 7, Stolen Base, a son of Bodemeister, who breezed in 21 4/5. Bodemeister okay with his juvenile debut runners. There's some class in this pedigree, and the second dam was a very fast sprinter. I believe Race Artist won a grade 3 going 7 furlongs. Bullet workout at Keeneland for trainer Michael Maker.
Yeah, Bullet work a couple back there. So another one that showed that good speed at the spring 2-year-old sale and then continued right along when sort of getting into the real bulk of his, of his career here. Some speed and class in the female family, as you mentioned. And Indian Charlie really emerging as a good broodmare sire, producing some very fast horses out of his daughters.
Trainer Norm Cassie already has a 2-year-old winner at this meet, owned by Mary Lou Whitney Stables. That combination sends out the only experienced runner in the race, the 8 Buckingham Prince. Now let's watch Buckingham Prince's second lifetime start at Ellis Park. This horse was battling for the lead on the outside, took over the front at about the 8th pole. We see he has a clear lead. He's just going to get run down late. He did a lot of work in the early portion of this race. The third place finisher did come back to win. I thought it was a solid effort, and that experience should take him a long way.
Absolutely. And this horse has really had a good experience, I thought, in both his starts. In his first start at Churchill Downs, he was 5th, but probably took some dirt in his face, got a bit of an education, and a couple of horses out of that race have come back to win. And then, as you said, his second start, he sort of won the battle, lost the war, did a lot of running while greatly improving his Beyer speed figure. And Ellis Park, that's another 2-year-old program that's kind of sneaky good, really produces some nice horses. And as you mentioned, Norm Cassie's already won a graded stake with a 2-year-old at the Saratoga meet. His barn looks loaded in this division.
The number 9 is Big Scully, and trainer Dallas Stewart has historically done well at prices at Saratoga with these Louisiana breds. Big Scully is by cross traffic, a spendthrift stallion, a $20,000 yearling. The dam has foaled 5 winners, and she is a half to Mr. Sulu, who is a very strong Louisiana bred going long. Sort of an interesting horse that must avoid a wide trip from an outside post.
A very interesting horse. And yeah, we'll have to work out a bit of a trip from that outside post with a short run into the turn, but really a rock solid pedigree, I think, on both sides. You mentioned Spendthrift sire Cross Traffic. That Unbridled Song was the leading freshman sire a couple of years ago with Champion Jaywalk and some others in his first crop. And this dam, a rock solid broodmare, 5 from 7, a terrific strike rate. And you mentioned that Dallas Stewart can connect at a price.
Let's take a look at our top selections for Friday's opener at Saratoga. You're going to go with the first-time starter, the 2 King of Sting, Jose Ortiz, Joe Sharp.
Yeah, I really like that combination of connections. And I think that this is a horse who could connect at a price for, as I said, just a rock solid racehorse, underrated sire and Spendthrift's Jimmy Creed. Buckingham Palace, the morning line favorite, I think a very, very logical horse. But I do think that this is a pretty wide open race in this auction conditions race.
I have to use your top pick. I have a lot of respect for King of Sting's connections and pedigree. Buckingham Prince, though, boy, the experience, again, as I mentioned, should take him a long way. I like that he's shown speed in his races. Cassie, obviously, on a roll right now. Hate to take the favorite, but I'm going to go with Buckingham Prince. 8267 for me, 2859 for Nicole. It's Spa Babies for Friday, July the 23rd. Our coverage presented by Spendthrift.